All right, JHK here for the AllStar, and joining me right now is UFC flyweight Gillian Robertson. Gillian, thank you so much for the time. It's been a long while, I think like 8, 9 months.
Oh yeah, it's been too long since I've uh, got the opportunity to talk to you, got the opportunity to get in the cage. So I'm just really excited for everything.
For sure. And in that time, you've been involved in a lot of grappling events. How was it just focusing on your ground game throughout that time and competing?
Uh, I guess competing wise, I was focusing on my ground game, but I actually spent a lot of time on my stand up. I feel like I've hardly focused on jujitsu. It's kind of been like just an extra like fun thing to do for me, and still to stay active in competition, still to keep me out there. But I feel like I needed to take a little bit of a step back from fighting, coming off of 2 losses, and just reassess everything in my career as a whole. So I just obviously have taken 8, 9 months off now, and like uh, it's too long for me as a fighter. I feel like I'm always ready to get back in there, but it was definitely a needed break, and I feel like I'm now in the position, like mentally and physically, to really go on a title run.
Reassessing what you've been doing, was it a slow process throughout that time, or was it something that kind of came at you instantly?
Oh yeah, it's definitely a slow process. I feel like it's reassessing your whole life. You have to look at like everything and how you even like how I'm constructing my camp, and like just the communication between me and my coach and everything. Just to really like I said, put me in the position for a title run. I feel like I haven't really been in that spot yet, but now I can confidently say that I feel like I could go on a 4 or 5 fight win streak and then see Valentina across the cage.
What can you reveal to us, like any changes that you have made?
I just feel like I'm a more of a mixed martial artist in general, where it's like I was so much more relying on my jujitsu, and now it's like I'm putting more strikes into my jujitsu, I'm putting more strikes into my wrestling, and just my striking in general is. I feel like it's evolved so much, honestly, in these last couple months. Just in general, I honestly feel like just my heart is with striking more now than it is. I've just spent so much time with it.
That's great to hear. And the striking, like, who did you work with more closely? Did you bring in some other people besides Dean?
It's mostly Justine Thomas that he was working with me with my striking more than anything else, and we were traveling to get like different bodies, different looks, and a lot of sparring partners. But I feel like just like being in camp all the time, we've never really gotten a lot of time to focus on my striking. It's been like we go to whatever my strengths are, which is my wrestling, my jujitsu. So it's like, all right, how are we gonna win this fight? We're gonna take her down. We're gonna choke her out. We're not thinking, oh, we can play on the feet a little bit. We can try this. So just me being in camp the whole time I've been in the UFC, I haven't had that opportunity to grow.
With the striking, what I mean? Like, is it more of being able to, like, now you can go in there and beat somebody up and then hurt them and then choke them out? Is that kind of like the way you want to do it now?
I want to be a threat no matter what. Dean always says to me, he's like, the reason, like, you're always, you're messed up when you're trying to force something. So it's like, if I have to get her to the ground, that's when I'm losing the fight already. So it's like, I want to be comfortable on my feet. I want to be comfortable on the ground. If she gets back up, I want to be comfortable. Like, no matter what, where the fight goes, I always want to be a threat to her.
How did that process go? You work with Dean with your striking, just your overall game, and then you go to these gyms and you spar with fighters. Is it like how you're testing out what you're learning on during sparring at these gyms?
Oh yeah, 100%. You're putting everything that you're drilling, but it's also just gives you that like little bit of unfamiliarity, where it's like when I go in the cage and I fight somebody, I don't know anything about her. Like, you can watch video, but you still don't know what she's gonna bring to you in that round. And it's like that's the same when I'm going to these other gyms. I'm like, these girls are bringing stuff, just different looks that I'm not used to. It's like you get those little bit of nerves walking into somebody else's gym too, and it's just I feel like it's good to expose yourself to all those different barriers.
You return to action December 11th, another pay-per-view. Priscila Cachoeira is your next opponent. Are there any past opponents you feel like are similar to her?
I would say maybe like what's her name? Poliana Botella. I feel like they're kind of similar in the way that they're both very dominant strikers, and they both have power. Like both of them, I feel like going. I guess I'm approaching the fight in the same way for both of them, where I'm like, I know once I get it to the ground, it will be a very dominant fight. I feel like Priscilla doesn't have very much to offer me off of her back, but on the feet, they were both a threat, like a very large threat. I'm like, she's TKO'd girls, she's broken girls orbital, she's definitely like has the power in her hand. So I feel like um I have to be wary about that, and just like make sure I don't get caught, make sure my defense is on point. But I know my path to victory with this fight too. I feel like it's the same as with Pollyanna, like just looking to take it to the ground and sit on top and do damage.
Your training camp is always with the firm, and you do a cross training. You're traveling. Or what were some of the highlights of this training camp? Just moving around.
Well, I spent about 10 days in Colorado, so that was an absolutely amazing experience. Got to go out there with, they have like 5 or 6 UFC girls, like Raquel Pennington, JJ Aldrich, Mallory Martin, Miranda Maverick. Hate to leave anybody out. I'm like, but they like literally on the mats every single day. They had all the UFC girls, they had PFL girls, they had a lot of high level pro girls just in general. So it was awesome just to be able to get, like I said, the different looks, the different bodies, and just a great experience up there. And especially in the elevation too, that's 100% different than here in Florida.
Yeah, that was my next question is, it takes some fighters a while to get used to it. You were only there for 10 days, so probably midway through you're acclimated.
Kind of. I actually had a trip to New York in the middle of it. So a little like it was just a 24-hour trip that I had to make. And so it's like I kind of got acclimated a little bit, then not, then back to it. And I was talking to Raquel, and she said it takes 21 days to acclimate. So I'm like, to really be fully acclimated, it would have taken a while.
Yeah, definitely. And when you enter these gyms with new faces, it can be daunting, especially in the sport where you're punching each other in the face. How beneficial has that been over the past couple of years of just being in the room with just people you don't even know, but they can be killers?
Like I said, it's the nerves about it. Like for me, especially, like I feel like I deal with anxiety a lot, so it's exposing yourself to that and getting used to it. So I'm like, every time I go into a new gym, I'm getting those nerves. I'm getting that anxiety of like, oh, I don't know what this girl is gonna bring like to the table. I don't know, like she could be more of a karate girl or be more of a judo girl or anything else. So it's like just like going in there and having to experience that every single time and multiple times a month, a week, whatever. I feel like that's just beneficial to me in general.
Yeah, I experience anxiety myself, but then I try to face the anxiety, and most people don't. They run away, right? They hide, whatever. You know what I mean? Were you ever like that? Did you have to overcome that yourself?
I feel like I've always been one to face it. Like for me, fighting was always like a more easy thing for me. Like it's easy to go out and to like fight in front of people, but like it was the interviews that were hard for me. It's like talking to people and just I feel like social anxiety was my biggest thing. So like I at the beginning when I first got like I noticed how bad it was once I was in the tough house. I feel like whenever you have a camera in your face 24/7 and I would literally do an interview and be pouring sweat after. Like I looked like I just got out of the sauna because I was just so nervous. So I just like after that I've tried to do like as many interviews as I possibly can, try to put myself out there. I did one commentating gig. I'm probably going to be commentating more next year. Hopefully I'm in the talks with that right now. So I really just try to put myself out there as much as possible and just I feel like the more you do face it, the more you do get comfortable.
How was the commentating gig? Because I've tried it a few times, and it is nerve wracking because you are under the microscope.
I actually loved it. I really enjoyed it. I guess just like being around the sport, and I find myself even watching fights now and just commentating like in my own mind.
That's great. That's great. Now, back to the fight. How do you see yourself getting back in the win column against your next opponent?
Like I said, I don't feel like she poses much of a threat to me on the ground. I know she is like she's a danger on her feet. You see any of her fights that she lands her one overhand right, and you see the look in the girl's eyes change, and generally they shoot right after. So you can tell that she does have power in her hand. So I'm gonna try to get it to a safe spot and really get it to my world. Get it to so I'm sitting on top of her, throwing strikes and getting to the throat.
Now, you're at American Top Team, and you left, but there's two fighters still there. Many consider two of the best of all time, which is Amanda Nunes and Kayla Harrison. What do you think about a potential showdown at 145 for the title in the UFC between those two ladies?
I don't know if it would ever happen. I don't, just like the friendship between them, but um, I like. I feel like Amanda's just the mixed martial artist in general. Where Kayla obviously has put a lot of work in recently, and her judo is something like obviously something next level. She's a gold medalist, but I feel like Amanda's just like the greatest of all time. There's really nothing that's gonna compare to her. So I'm like, I've got her on a pedestal no matter what.
Who's below her? Who's like number two, number three in your eyes?
Um, I don't number 3, but number 2 is definitely Rose Namajunas. I'm like, she's someone that I've always looked up to. Like, I feel like Rose was the first person I started looking up to when I was like 16 years old and an amateur and like just getting into fighting. And she was in Invicta and she pulled off a flying armbar in like less than a minute. And like she had my attention from that point. Like she went into the tough house after that and she was finishing girls from her guard, like off her back. And me just being the jiu-jitsu girl and seeing that, I was like, oh, this girl's dope. So I fell in love with Rose from the beginning. But then I feel like just knowing Amanda, like meeting her and just being around, like she is one of the most, like the nicest human beings and just the most humble. I feel like there's a very fine line to walk between humble and cocky. And it's like, she is not like, you would never describe her as cocky. She just believes in herself and is confident in herself. And you can just tell she's an all around great person.
Did you get to train any with Rose in Colorado?
No, it was like 3 days after she fought Whaley.
Okay.
So she was still a little bit banged up, but I did get to meet her, which like for me, that was enough. Like I was sitting over there fangirling. She's like, oh yeah, I'd love to train with you sometime. I'm like, me?
Yeah, that's awesome. Awesome. Now, a couple more questions. PTSD, PTSD from like injuries, weight cuts, losses, or even like damage taken in a fight. Does that exist in combat sports?
I guess to an extent. If you want to go with weight cuts, every time I smell sweet sweat, it makes me feel some type of way. I can't. Every time I'll just be walking around the house and like if it's like on my clothes or something like that, I'm like, is that sweet sweat? It just gets me. It's definitely something there. But with losses, I would say for a little bit, like for what probably my worst loss was when I lost to Myra Buena Silva in Brazil. And literally one thing was after like I tapped with less than 10 seconds left and she got up and I don't know what happened with her knee, but like she couldn't walk. It was like all blown up. Literally the next day she tagged me in a post where like her knee was huge. She could hardly walk. And I was like, if I would have lasted 10 more seconds, I could have won that fight. So literally for the next like 2-3 months, every single morning, I woke up thinking about me tapping. So I'm like, I feel like to an extent, yes. But then like, you got to move on. You got to get over it. You got to keep like, that's one of the biggest pieces of advice Dean, I feel like, has ever told me. And it was once after I lost to Macy Barber when I was walking out the cage, literally as I was taking the steps out the cage, he was like, it's over. And that's it. I'm like, it's over. There's nothing you can do about it. It's over. You got to get over it and move on, move forward, and just look forward to the next one.
For sure. And last question. It's an open-ended question. You could answer it any way you want. Outside of combat sports, outside of training, fighting, what keeps you up at night?
My dog. His snoring. That's about it. I'd say that's about all I really. That's where my heart's at. Besides combat sports, like literally, I will go to bed dreaming about jiu-jitsu sometimes, like going through techniques in my head. My heart is 100% with MMA, with this sport. But besides that, my true passion is with my animals. So my dog would be my passion.
All right. December 11th, UFC 269, Las Vegas. Thank you, Gillian, for the time so much. And enjoy the fight. I think like fighters need to enjoy it. You know what I mean? That's the most important thing.
Oh yeah, 100%. That's what Dean always tells us. He's like, these go by too fast. So he's like, when it's gone, it's gone. So you got to enjoy every single minute of it.